Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone. Welcome back to the Daily Wolves podcast, and welcome back to yet another crossover episode as we look ahead to the weekend's fixture, where Wolves will be hosting Bournemouth on Saturday. So my name's Nathan, and I'm your host for today, and I'm joined by Vic from the Bournemouth team. Vic, how are we doing?
Hello, Nathan. Greetings from sunny Bournemouth. I'm great, thanks. Looking forward to the weekend's game. Looking forward to taking away those 3 away points. Finally, obviously not having a great away run this season, but we have to break it somewhere. And I believe this is now the chance after 2 consecutive home lost games. I believe we can do it now against you.
Yeah, so I'm actually really intrigued to get all your thoughts today. I think Bournemouth had a lot of obviously energy and press behind them, with a brilliant start to the season with sort of standout results against Arsenal and City. And obviously you just mentioned there 2 previous games are slightly underwhelming for you guys, with a recent defeat to Brighton, and then prior to that Brentford.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on your sort of positioning in the table at the minute? You're 13th, 15 points, sort of 6 points ahead of us at the minute. And we've just recently come out of the relegation zone. So what are your overall thoughts on Bournemouth's season so far?
Well, when we did the position, the final position prediction before the season, I predicted that Bournemouth is going to finish 8th, and which could potentially bring us Europe, but doesn't necessarily have to be. So I still stand behind my words. I still believe that we can finish that top table. Maybe anything above the 8th place would be a dream. Obviously, the logo, the motto of Bournemouth and Vitality together, anything is possible. So why not? But I'll be happy with 8th or anything above at the end of the season. And unluckily, those 2 defeats knocked us a bit. To be honest, I didn't expect we were going to lose home to Brighton, especially not after having an extra player for the last half an hour. And it happened the same against Arsenal. If you watch the highlights or if you watch the game, they got the red card in 30th minute, where Saliba got red card, and then we were absolutely smashing it for the rest of the game. And Arsenal is a much better team than Brighton, you know. So absolutely. I was expecting, when I saw red card, Baleba, one of the key players in midfield of Brighton, got a red card. I was like, there's one option for them. They're probably going to park the bus and try to save the score. And for us, we just need to attack like crazy, which we didn't. I felt like the energy level just wasn't there. Wasn't there.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting what you're saying there. You obviously sound very positive and confident in your ability to, still back your predictions, finish 8th and stuff. Do you put that success down to? I mean, here on the Daily Wolves podcast, we've spoken at length about our manager and how we feel about his competency throughout this season. Do you put your confidence and faith in that prediction of finishing 8th down to Iraola and all the work that he's done behind the team? Because when from my perspective as a Wolves fan, when I look at your squad, I think there's lots of quality, but it feels like it's a really good, well-oiled unit rather than having standout individual players, whereby maybe Wolves, we've had a couple of real standout performers this year, notably Cunha in the previous game, that have kind of brought us out on top. Would you put that prediction or your faith in that prediction down to the manager then?
Definitely. I remember when Iraola took over last season, the first 8 games we were horrible. We had 2 points, and I was just waiting what's going to be the next thing and when he's going to be sacked. And then that next game against Burnley, I remember in Vitality, we were down 1-0 at the halftime, and I was like, that's it, Iraola is gone. No one even sang anymore his song. He drinks the Stella Heat paella. Yeah, and then suddenly what? Turnover 2-1. Well, let's see what he can do. And then we had that unbeaten run of 7 games, which was great. And definitely this season things are starting to look way better.
Yeah, I mean he's an impressive on the touchline. He's an impressive, intense character, and he always seems like he's fully involved in every single kick of the ball.
Oh yeah,
which I
definitely.
always like. I always like that as a fan. And I mean, I've watched a little bit of Bournemouth this season, and I wanted to get your thoughts on. Yeah, we mentioned well-oiled machine, and the manager's obviously a massive part of that. Would you want to single out certain individuals that you would put some of your success down to? I think from my perspective, I've really enjoyed watching Semenyo this season, but just wanted to get your thoughts on if you were to single out 2 or 3 individuals and star performers this year, who would they be for you?
Semenyo definitely, one of them. I'd say he just exploded this season. I remember when Iraola took over Bournemouth and he was trying to find his perfect position. And I was watching the interview where Semenyo was actually talking about that because he was mainly playing as a striker, sometimes as a winger, but more left wing. And now almost every game he seems to be starting on the right wing, and this is like. I remember when I watched that interview when he said Iraola came to him and said, "Look, Anton, why don't we try to put you on the right wing? I feel like this is the perfect position for you."
Yeah.
Boom. That's what happened.
I mean, he looks so dangerous, cutting in on his left foot. He's absolutely rapid. And to be honest, we have this chat almost every week as Wolves fans, but we have a very talented left back, similar to you guys. Ait Nouri is a very talented player, and we really enjoy watching him go forwards. But defensively, at times he can be, and I feel like a bit of a broken record because I've mentioned it a few times. He can be a little bit passive and sometimes out of shape. So it will be really interesting to see how they match up. I actually wanted to ask you about Kirkes briefly as well, because I saw some rumours over the past few days that apparently he's getting some attention from Liverpool and Man United as they look forward to the sort of January transfer window. What are your thoughts on Kirkes and that recent gossip, I guess?
Well, firstly, I have to say that he's one of my favorite, if not the most favorite player in the club. Obviously, having a bit of Serbian heritage, because I'm Serbian. So I'm thinking about what you said about Ait Nouri. Kerkez was exactly the same the season he arrived in Bournemouth, and I kept saying this that he needs to work on his defense. Offensively, he was great. He had that run, that explosion, acceleration. Everything was quick, and he managed to come back as well. But he just wasn't as good defensively. And then in the last few games, we've just seen him everywhere, literally everywhere. Defense, offense. Even got a couple of assists on the score sheet, both of them against City. It just, to be honest with you, I am a bit scared that he's going to leave. Club's intention is definitely not to release anyone this winter transfer period, but I mean, it's not always up to them. Sometimes it's just down to the players as well. As far as I know, and as far as it has been shared with public, there is no release clause on Milos Kerkez, which is good because then they cannot negotiate directly with the player. But considering that we only got him for 15 million two seasons, season and a half ago, getting 40 million for a left back like that would be a great deal. Now, what's going to happen after? This is the thing.
Exactly.
And because you're building something, things are starting to look good. We could potentially get to the Europe in the next couple of years. We're extending the stadium from 11,300 seats to potential 17 to 18,000, which we finished in 2027. So looking forward to all that's going to happen. Will the skeleton of the team remain the same? And this is my biggest fear. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's always the case for clubs that are in the Premier League and around that mid-table clubs that are looking to really push on and sort of break into that Europe and have that ambition of finishing in the top 10, as you mentioned. And Wolves had that sort of 3-4 years ago, where came up from the Championship and had a decent bit of success and started building a really strong identity and spine to the team. And then ultimately, results started to fade, few changes in managers, and all of a sudden we, finishing in the bottom half. And we lose players like Ruben Neves last season. We lose players like Pedro Neto, Max Kilman, and those are big losses for a club that is of the size of Wolves, where we've got to be realistic that we are aiming. Obviously, in Dreamland, we want to be competing in Europe. We want to have that ambition, but it's very difficult to do so because you almost rely on bringing in the finances that those star players have, and at the same time, sort of trying to keep that progression balance. It's a really difficult thing for clubs that are in sort of. I mean, we're not in exactly the same position at the minute, but in similar positions to Bournemouth and Wolves. So it's it's an interesting one. And talking about signings briefly, obviously you guys lost Dominic Solanke in the summer, who was a massive talisman for you, and you brought in Evan Nilsson, and there was a lot of talk around him and a lot of talk around the fact that recruiting from leagues that or non-English leagues can sometimes be a risk. For Premier League teams. What are your thoughts on Evan Nilsson? But personally, I've been impressed with him so far, and he looks like he's a threat throughout games, and looks like he can get on the score sheet at any time. And what are your thoughts?
To be honest with you, Solanke was a great deal to let him go, because getting 65 million for that. Obviously, when we bought him, we paid around 20 million. So getting triple money for that was great. We managed to buy a striker with 40,000, which was 2/3 from that money. So Van Elsen, I think he needs time to settle in. He's getting the opportunities, the chances. When the season started, I kept saying in most of the episodes to my colleagues, and even in the crossover episodes, his time will come. Just give him time, give him chance, and once he starts scoring, he will score almost every game. And that's what exactly happened. After the Arsenal game, he scored 3 in a row. If he scored against Brighton, would have been his 4th one. But we're hoping to see another goal from him this weekend.
Well, I can't say I'm of the same opinion. Just briefly, before I get your thoughts on some of Wolves' players as well, I just wanted to give everyone a quick reminder that here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform. Zencastr came out the clear winner, with 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs. It's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more. So, Vic, what are the Wolves players that you are most worried about come Saturday, 3 p.m. at Molineux, the Golden Palace? It's very loud there. Bournemouth are worried. Who are they worried?
Well, I always like when I give my thoughts on the team, I always like to start from the back. So I'd say that goalkeeper Jose Sa has been there for quite some time now. I think last season he's been brilliant. This season, so. Again, the form of the goalkeeper, you never know. It's like the older they get, the better they are. They're like the wine. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just has his match against Bournemouth or the next one or the one after, and ends up with taking away the man of the match reward. Other one, I think Gonzalo Guedes would probably be the biggest threat to Bournemouth. I mean, I'm not sure whether Gary O'Neill will decide to go with Gonzalo to start with, or with Hwang, or both of them.
Yeah.
I'm glad that Pedro Neto left, because he would definitely be the threat number one.
Absolutely.
So yeah, those players. I mean, midfield, probably Lemina, and Yeah, I think Cunha, obviously Cunha is that great link between the midfield and the strikers. My vision, he always kind of starts in the midfield but ends up as a second striker, shadow striker, and he seems to be scoring goals often for Wolves. So
I mean, he has been brilliant. I'm glad you mentioned Cunha. He's our favourite topic at Daily Wolves at the minute.
Wasn't he supposed to leave? Wasn't he supposed to leave? And there was
I really hope not.
Gambling thing involved. There was
a gambling thing. You say?
Yeah.
I don't recall. I don't know if he enjoys a bit of a Paddy Power or whatever. But he came into Wolves for 40 million pounds. So I'm hoping that we can, if we are, I really hope he stays for a while longer. And the reports coming out of Molineux over the past few days is that apparently the sporting director, Matt Hobbs, has guaranteed Gary O'Neill that Cunha will stay at Wolves till the end of the season.
Unless Chelsea offers 100 million.
That's it. If Chelsea offer 100 million, it might be a different story. But for our sake, I think he's a player that when he's on his game, he elevates the quality around him so much, and he's one of those that individually can completely transform a game. He, as you said, is a fantastic link between sort of that midfield and the strikers, his ball carrying ability, and then just overall quality. I mean, his 2 goals against Fulham were outstanding. The touch and finish for the first one, and then the second one, how he didn't even look up. He's just hit it first time from outside the box, top bin. So yeah, he's a massive threat. And I found it interesting that you also mentioned Guedes. Actually, he's not one that has we've spoken about him a little bit on the podcast, and he's a bit of a weird. It's a bit of a weird situation because he hadn't played for Wolves for ages, been loaned out, sort of out of favour, and got played in a cup game. I think it was against Burnley early on in the season, and scored 2 goals. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, we're going to have to play him a little bit more then because no one else is scoring that much at the time. And then popped up with the 4th goal against Fulham.
On the
weekend. So he's every time he's played, he's given a good account of himself, and that's all you can ask of a player is in his position, especially. He plays, he scores, he's a threat. So yeah, why not? And my opinion of him is that I think he seems very unbothered. He doesn't seem like he cares too much. He scored against Fulham and hardly celebrated. So our thought at Daily Wolves is that he might be on the way out, and it might be a case of he's getting minutes towards the end of games, but really the feeling is maybe mutual on the idea of him sort of getting his stock up to then be sold in January. That's just the hypothesis at the minute, but yeah, interesting you mentioned it. And Hwang has been coming back from injury, so hopefully he can hit some form that he hit last season as well. But yeah, it's a funny one because obviously you guys are off the back of 2 defeats and we're off the back of 2 wins, so we're feeling maybe a false sense of overconfidence, really, because 2 great wins and we scored 6 goals in 2 games and managed to only concede 1 in 2 games. And in the 10 games prior to that, we conceded 27 goals. So,
but you scored in each one.
Absolutely right. So we scored 20 goals this season, which is something for a team that's that far down the table. So it will be a really interesting matchup. I wanted to also get your thoughts on a couple of your attacking players, actually, because Cliver has got a bit of noise around him, Tavernier as well. There seems to be a bit of those players up front seem to be able to interchange a bit. I know that you were saying that Semenyo can he's now sort of nailed down that right wing position, but how do you see Iraola sort of lining up that front 4 with Evan Nilsson? I know he's kind of your classic 9, but how would you see them lining up against Wolves?
So it all depends. I mean, Iraola seems to be starting with the usual 4-2-3-1 with those 3 playing as central attacking mids / wingers, the ones on the left and the right. So one of the great things that I like to mention almost every episode is what a genius move he did with Ryan Christie. Ryan Christie came as a winger to play for Bournemouth, and his main position was winger, right midfielder. When Iraola took over, he said, "Ryan, you're going to be playing central defensive midfielder." We were all like, "Say what? Central defense?" And we've got now one of the best midfielders in the club, and maybe one of the better ones in the whole league. Like what Christie does as a central defensive mid, along with Cook in the line, they're brilliant. They're brilliant, honestly. And I'm quite surprised about now moving on to Cook that he still didn't get his call for the national team, because he's been just great.
Okay.
He's been everywhere. Proper box to box player, just amazing. And I'm glad we've got that kind of line, sort of connecting defense and the forwards. But talking about those, let's say attacking four, right? Probably Tav on the left, Clivert in the middle, Semenyo on the right. With Semenyo and Tav going onto the wings. It all depends also if Clivert will start the game or not. With, let's say, with David Brooks being now in a bit better form than the last, let's say, season, after he suffered that cancer illness that he went through. So, it all depends on the day what's going to happen.
It'll be interesting.
One thing that I would like to see is Mark Travers back in goal. Because, yes, we do have Kepa on loan, but what Travers showed in few games this season, Kepa still cannot beat. Kepa's been all right, but he had some sort of dropouts and some mistakes, while Travers was brilliant every single game when we watched him. So that would be, probably my...
prediction on the lineup. I think it's going to be really interesting, especially in that midfield battle. And it's interesting that Iraola's brought Christie into that midfield position, and you can kind of see it, I guess, because as a winger in the Premier League, you need to have outstanding physical qualities, and there's undoubtedly he's got good technical quality, but potentially that sort of speed and power that someone like Semenyo brings, Christie can't quite bring that. So moving him into midfield is interesting. It's also interesting, and it'll be very interesting on Saturday who he goes with, because potentially that Adams and Cook link up might be more physical to combat the Wolves midfield, who are very physical in the sense of, if it'll be also to see sort of what Gary O'Neill goes with. Mario Lemina played centre half against Fulham, but if he brings him back into midfield with Andre and Gomez, that they're almost three defensive midfielders. At times they have got qualities going forwards, but they're, they could all play your traditional number 6 role. So it'll be very interesting to see what the managers do. And of course, Gary O'Neill wanting to also prove Bournemouth wrong as well, right? He always wants to prove it. And for our sake, I hope he does. And before we go on to our predictions for Saturday's game, I just want to give our listeners and yourself, Vic, a quick reminder that this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League, women's football and fantasy football. A unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. So Vic, this is the big one. What are your predictions for Saturday come when it's 5 o'clock, 5:30 p.m, the game's finished? What's the scores on the cards?
Ooh. So, considering some of the very interesting facts and stats that I managed to pull out, Wolves has so far conceded 8 goals after the 75th minute, while Bournemouth did score in the last 6 out of 7 games after the 75th minute. So the game, I think, will start with a slow pace. Probably draw at the halftime, 0-0, and the second half will definitely open up. We do seem to be scoring a lot of goals in the last third of the game, which we managed to prove in the last few games as well. So I'll be positive as always. I'll go with 1-0 to Bournemouth. And goal definitely in the last 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay. I have to say, Vic, I'm very impressed with the in-depth analysis, step by step there of the game. That's one of the more in-depth ones we've had. I do also agree on the sense that I think it's going to be a low scoring game. I think that we, as a club at the minute, we've got a fair bit of positivity behind us. So I don't see us being shy on the ball, which has at times happened this season, especially early on when we were in a poor enough form. So, but I do back us to get on the score sheet. So I'm going to go with a 1-1. I would agree that we do obviously tend to concede towards the latter parts of games, and we're not known for being able to hang on to leads very well. So I see us potentially going 1-0 up, and then you guys pegging us back to a 1-1 draw there at the end. So yeah, there you have it, folks. It's going to be either 1-0 or 1-1, and I'm crossing all my fingers
not a lot
here.
of goals in overall. If you look at the last 5 head-to-head games, it's quite equal. Like we managed to carry away 2 wins. You won twice as well. There was 1 draw, and only one of the games ended over 2.5 goals, I think, and that was when you beat us in Vitality last season 2-1. We were 1-0 up, and I think the winning goal for you scored Kalajic.
Yes,
I don't even know where he went
Sasa
now.
But he's currently recovering from another injury, so he's had a torrid time with ACL and knee injuries. So
he's still in the club, though.
He's still with the club, and he's as far as I know, he's recovering at Wolves training ground at the moment, sort of coming back from another injury. So he's one of those players he just seems like such a nice guy, and you just really want him to do well. So hopefully he can come back. Support the team properly on Saturday from the stands, unfortunately. Thanks for joining us today, Vic. And thank you everyone for listening. It's been really, really interesting to hear the Bournemouth insight. And I wish you all the best for Saturday's game. Although I've got my fingers crossed that my prediction is correct.
Up the Cherries!
And as we always finish on the Wolves podcast, out of darkness cometh light. See you later, everyone.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.